Hey guys, Mikoshi here. Today I'm making a crafting guide on how to make a physical bow. So no build guide today. I've decided to make this video completely in-game. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, which is quite different from my normal PowerPoints. Before we get into the video, I will be explaining a few basic concepts in the crafting of the bow. If you know how to craft a bow and you just need a refresher, or you have knowledge of crafting but not a physical bow, then I suggest you completely skip this part, but for the rest, sit back and enjoy. Alright, so for the first explanation, the first one being that every single item that we're going to have can have up to 6 explicits. Our bow is going to have only 6 explicit, we don't have any implicits. And explicits are divided in two, half being prefixes and the other half being suffixes. And you can have a maximum of only 3 of each when it's a rare item. So you can have 3 prefix and 3 suffix on your bow at maximum and at all times. You can have under, but never extra. And the reason that is very useful is because you need to understand how metamods work. So what are metamods? Metamods are basically mods that you can add on your bench that are just called metamods. And those are suffix cannot be changed, prefix cannot be changed, cannot roll attack modifiers, cannot roll cast modifiers, and can have up to 3 crafted modifiers. Oops. So yeah, those are what metamods are. We're only going to use a single meta modifier, which is the prefix cannot be changed. And at a very rare occasion, we could use the cannot roll attack modifiers, but that'll explain later. But yeah, we're only going to use the prefix cannot be changed. However, metamods are expensive. It's for us, it's a 2 divine a hit, so it is quite expensive, but it's important to note that those metamods are also suffixes and prefixes. The prefix cannot be changed is actually a suffix, which means that when we want to use it, we need to make sure to have a maximum of 2 suffix and not 3, because if we have 3 suffixes that are on our item, we won't be able to use our metamods properly. Coming in next are fractured items. So what are fractured items? They are items that have a fractured mod. A fractured mod is basically a modifier that is written in gold. As you can see here on the helmet, it has a 48% to fire resistance. That is the fractured mod. The rest of the mods are written in blue, which means they can be modified, but the gold one cannot be modified no matter what. Let's take example of this chest, which has the cover enemies in ash when they hit you. If we make it a rare item and we chaos spam it, no matter what, it will not change. Even if you scour it, it will change nothing. This mod will always stay on. Fractured items are very cool because they already have a modifier, so you know you'll always have it. This means if it's a good mod, you always know that you're going to have a very good mod on the item, and you only have to craft for the 5 modifiers and not 6, so you don't even have to think about it anymore. However, if the fractured mod is bad, it will brick the item because, example, you have plus 10 life. Well, the item just sucks because you will always have that plus 10 life no matter how much you craft on it. So for this video, we're going to want the bow attacks fire 2 additional arrow or +1, and that's basically going to decide how much the bow is going to cost. Now, how do you get fractured items? They can drop from monsters. You've probably seen fractured items drop from monsters, or you can fracture them yourself with something called a fracturing orb. So fracturing orb, what it does is it fractures a random modifier on a rare item with at least 4 modifiers, locking it into places. Now that means you basically have a 24% chance to fracture the mod that you want. So usually when you want to fracture an item, you're going to want at least 2 good modifiers, so it's actually a 50-50 of not breaking the item, because fracturing orbs are very expensive. Alright, so some modifiers aren't obtainable with basic currency or by the crafting bench. And many exist, but the one that interests us is the veiled modifiers. So what are veiled modifiers? They are modifiers that come from the syndicate mechanic. And it's basically that writing that just moves by itself. So what it does is it's a pool of modifiers that you cannot get, and you would need to speak to some girl called June. Let's go see June right here. And if you talk to her, you can actually unveil the item. So And when you unveil the item, she gives you 3 choices, and you can actually choose which modifier you want on your enemy. Here, fire damage, projectile. Okay, well, let's go for that physical damage. So as you can see here, we now have the modifier increased physical damage and chance to bleed to blind enemies on hit. You wouldn't be able to get that by Chaos Exalting or anything. You would need the June Unveil. Now, how do you get the June Unveil? There's 2 ways of doing so. First one being with a Veiled Chaos Orb. So it basically does the same thing as a Chaos. It rerolls the item, but it guarantees 1 Veiled modifier, and then you would have to go to speak to June to unveil that modifier. The second way of unveiling or having a veiled modifier on the item is by doing something called an Eisling. Usually you don't really do the Eisling yourself, or you don't farm the Eisling yourself. You're going to go find it on something called TFT. And with TFT, you can ask somebody else is going to farm the Eisling for you. And then once you need the Eisling, you can contact them. They will invite you to the party. You will give the item to you. They will smack the Eisling for you, and it will give you the Eisling modifier on your item. What's really cool about Eisling is there's many tiers of Eisling, and one of the 4th tier actually only takes off 1 modifier and gives 1 modifier, which means it doesn't re-roll the whole item, which means you don't have to brick the item to be able to use a unveil modifier. Now, for those who are confused by that, don't worry. In the video, I will be using an Eisling, so you will see firsthand what getting an Eisling looks like. Alright, so for the last part, it's going to be an explanation on the add and remove versus reforge. So on one of the last step of our bow crafting journey, we're going to do something called the Hody crafting. We're going to go roll for the attack speed mod. As you can see here, I have the 15% increased attack speed, which is tier 2. And the way I did that is by using the Hody crafting station. I am left with 2 choices. Either reforge a rare item or add a new speed modifier and remove another. The reason you would go for the add a new speed modifier and remove another is because you guarantee that your item will never have 6 mods, because you'll be at 5 mods at that moment. And that will basically guarantee that you will never have too many modifiers on your item and that you won't be able to metacraft anymore. If you go reforge, you have a possibility of having too many modifiers on the item. Therefore, you are not able to actually then metacraft with the item, and you would have to annul one of the mods. And if you annul one of your prefixes, so basically it's going to be 3 chance and 5. So you basically have a 60% chance of you messing up the item every time you hit the reforge and it completely fills your mods. So that's why we're going to go for the add a new speed modifier and remove another. It is a lot more expensive, but it is worth it, because if you have to break your item and restart all over again, it's going to end up costing you way more. Now, the last step before getting into the crafting is asking yourself, what is the budget? First of all, do you have the budget to go +2 arrows or only +1 arrow? After that, once you've decided that, you need to choose. The first thing we're going to be rolling for is going to be the essence mod with physical damage, and then we're going to hope to get a hybrid modifier with increased physical damage and plus to accuracy rating. As you can see on this bow, it is tier 4, which means the person settled at tier 4, which is at, I think, 250, 300 essences. If you want to go tier 2 and plus, it's actually, I think, 490 or like around a bit less than 500. And if you want to go tier 1, well, then you go in the wild numbers. I think it's something like in the 700s. So obviously it's going to cost a lot more divines, because you're going to be using a lot more essences. So that's also a question you need to ask. It is very important for you to ask yourself those questions, because if you sell too much, it's actually sometimes not worth it to go physical to cold conversion with a bow that's not strong enough, because the bow is really what makes the bow build. Finally, the last thing you're going to need to know when to settle is going to be the attack speed reforge. This is going to be the crafting that's going to cost you the most, because you need to metamod every time, and then the juice is so expensive with the Hody crafting station. It's going to be multiple divines a hit. Alright, so now it's time to craft, and the crafting is going to be divided in multiple sections. First one is going to be getting the base, whether it's going to be you're going to roll for the fracture, or you're going to buy the items with the mod and then fracture it yourself, or you're going to buy the item with the fractured base. Then you're going to have to do the small preparation of getting the sockets, linking if you want the colors, etc. The quality at 30% is very important. And then the third step is going to be essencing for the hybrid. Once that's done, you're going to go for the Isling, then Reforge Speed, then benchcraft the last mod, and then it's going to be time for you to flex it in Global 1. Alright, so for the base, if you want a +2, you're going to want a base that is at least level 86 for it to be able to roll the bow attacks fire 2 additional arrow. What a lot of players do is either they buy the spine bow at level 86, they use something called Orb of Alteration. They're gonna alt their item until they hit the +2. Then they're gonna regal it to make it rare and make it 4 mods. You could do that, however, it's like 1,000 or 2,000 in average, and it's pretty much a waste of time. What I like to do is actually just buy a random bow that has +2. Like, I don't care about the rest of the mods. Usually you can get them for 1 to 2 divines on the market, and then you're basically gonna fracture orb them. So we're gonna do that together. Hopefully it hits. It did not hit. It bricked the item, so we basically lost 2 divines plus the cost of a fracturing orb, which is I think 20 divs. So this goes nowhere. But lucky for us, we have kind of a finished product. So this is what your bow would kind of look like, and we're gonna go from there. So you could buy the item just like this. Usually this is gonna cost you, I think, between 40 to 55 divines, depending on what time it is during the league. But I know in Affliction it's basically messed up, so I can't really tell you the price because it just jumps every day. So you get the item just like this, and that's your base. The next step is going to be preparing your base. I'm lucky I already have it 6 link. I'm not going to make it white socket. I'm not going to do any of that. However, I want the quality to be 30%. So I'm going to be using something called Perfect Fossils and a Primitive Chaotic Resonator. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting my, like this, and then handing in my fossils. So basically what you do is you put your fossil inside your resonator, and then you smack it on your item. Oh, sorry. It needs to be rare. So you're going to regal orbit if it's not. And then hit it. 17%, 27%, 21%, 23%, 30%. Wow, nice. So 5 hit. I don't know what's the average. I think it's really 1 chance in 30, but those aren't really expensive. And it is not like the most important thing, especially if you're kind of on like a budget or like exactly at the budget of getting into it. It's not really the most important part. It doesn't really give you that much of a bonus. It does give a bit of physical damage. As you can see on the top, the quality does increase the physical damage. So once that is done, the next step is going to be spamming the essences. So that's going to be a very long and hard process. So prepare yourself a lot of essences. Sorry, I'm sick today, so I might be coughing a lot. So what I like to do is actually hold Alt, so I can see all of the modifiers and their tier, and it's gonna be time to spam the living shit out of your bow. Yeah, before I forget, actually, it's really important for you guys when you're spamming your bow that if you hit the hybrid mod, increased physical damage and accuracy, you want that hybrid mod to have at least 1 prefix that is open, which means only 2 prefix, and at least one suffix that is open, which means 2 suffix only. And that 2 suffix does count your fractured mod. Why do we want that? Is because we will be using an Isling to get our 3rd prefix, right? So you don't want that to be filled, and you would have to annul. You would have to use a annul orb to like randomly take off a modifier, just like this, and you know you have the odds of you losing one of your modifiers already, which is kind of a bummer. And the reason why we want one of our suffix to be open is actually to be able to use prefix, prefix cannot be changed, right? Because if all of our suffix are full, let's see if, okay, well, here all of our prefix are full. Here, no. Sorry, it's kind of complicated. Yeah, right here, let's say. I would actually not be able to use it, and I would have to annul and hopefully hit one of these suffixes. Alright, so I've hit one of the modifiers, but as you can see, it is tier 6. Tier 6 is bad. We don't want to settle, even if you're on a lower budget. When you're at a lower budget, you want at least tier 4 or 3, and if you know you have a bit of chunky currency, you're not going to be settling under tier 2. So, back to spamming. Alright, so depending on your budget, right now what we would get is pretty much perfect. We got our physical damage as the first modifier as the essence mod, and then we have the tier 4. As you can see with the accelerated video, it takes a lot of essences and a lot of clicks to get to tier 4. So getting to tier 2 is quite a bit. For me, I would not settle. However, for the sake of the video, as well as some players would actually settle at tier 4, which I think is the bare minimum. I will continue like this as it's pretty much perfect. We have one prefix open and we have one suffix that is open. So we can go on to the next step, which is going to be getting an isling. While I was making the video, I decided to make it in standard because I had currency to throw away. Thing is, that I didn't think about is that nobody sells isling in standard, which meant I literally waited half a day for nobody to offer to make an isling, and I've asked to buy an isling and nobody answered. So I'm currently in Craft of Exile to show you guys how to finish your bow. So we're gonna be at the part of the isling. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna give the item to a dude that you found on TFT, and he's gonna isling hit it. So it's gonna be a hit like this. So now we've actually veiled the suffix, which is bad. We don't want that. So we're gonna have to go for the prefix cannot be changed. And then you could either like 50-50 and annul, which didn't work. This time it did work. Or you could go for the scour and put it back on the prefix. You can put it back on. Anyways, for both of it, it's expensive and it's a lot of divines. And so you would find another isling and hit it until you hit the prefix. Now we've hit the prefix, that's very good. And you can follow up with the unveil. You pretty much have a 100% chance to hit at least in the 130% increased physical. Then the second modifier, well, the hybrid, this one is poison on hit. For us, it's kind of useless, but we don't really care about that. And then boom, this is what your prefix will look like. You have your hybrid mod, physical and accuracy. Us, it's going to be tier 4. We have our essence mod with physical damage that we were spamming with. And then we have the unveiled isling increased physical damage hybrid with the second modifier, which for us is poison on hit. Alright, so now that our prefixes are done, it is time to go for the Reforge Speed. This part is going to be the expensive part of the bow, and if you're unlucky, it's going to be sinking divines for you. And so basically how to do that you're basically be going on your hardy crafting station, and there's an option that says add and remove a speed modifier. It's 20,000 gold juice and one white one, and it is very expensive. Well, per hit. Now there is the Reforge one, which is 150 gold, which is absolutely nothing. But as explained earlier in the video, that could potentially break your build, your bow, which would, well, you would have to restart all over again. So in this step, you're going to craft prefixes cannot be changed, and then you're going to go for the add remove speed. We got the projectile speed, that is bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to prefix cannot be changed and go back to it. Reforge again. We were unlucky. Now I'm just going to do undo, but you would have to annul. You would have to take off the speed modifier, because if you didn't, for example, yeah, you did like this and then you add it again, you wouldn't be able to add a mod. I don't know why. Even if you remove and add, it doesn't work for whatever reason. So you would have to, either you could try to annul and hopefully hit the speed, or you could scour and put back the prefixes cannot be changed. Projectile speed. What the actual fuck? Attack speed. Tier 3. Tier 3 is bad. My fault. Tier 3 is bad. But depending on your budget, you could settle or not. We won't settle. Projectile speed. Oh my god. Alright, tier 2 attack speed. So basically, the same, it's literally the same bow as what we had in the early before I scoured it. Now obviously, if you continued spamming essences, you would go for a higher tier, and if you have the currency, you can go for a higher tier attack speed. But this part is really expensive, so usually at tier 2 attack speed, I don't even try going tier 1. Now your last step is the easiest. You go on your bench, and you're going to go for crit. Now there are multiple crits in the bench, so those mods: increase critical strike chance, strength and int, increase critical strike multiplier, and global critical strike multiplier. We're going to go for the additional strength and intelligence with increased critical strike chance. It's a hybrid mod. We're going to go for the highest tier, obviously, and then you would spam it until you have, perfect. And that's how you basically make your bow. You could, if you had a higher amount of your hybrid tier, if you wanted to go and make your physical DPS higher. However, I think at like tier 4, 650 is kind of like the average-ish you can go for with a nice attack speed and stuff. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a lot of fun while making your bow. Please let me know in the comments if you liked this type of video instead of the PowerPoints. Sorry if I couldn't make it completely in-game 100%. It was because really the Aisling and Standard just wouldn't be sold ever, and every time I'd get contacted, it was some noob, or yeah, a new player who had an Aisling in League and not in Standard, so I kind of got tilted after like 6 hours wait. But yeah, so I wish you luck on your bow, and see you in the next video.